Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner Stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I bought a VHS tape from the dark web labeled Evidence Room 1994. The footage shows someone wearing my father's face, but my dad was never arrested, or so I thought. I want to start this off by saying I'm not the type of guy who messes around with creepy internet shit. You know those idiots who go on the dark web looking for hitmen or haunted mystery boxes? Yeah, that's not me. I've always thought that kind of stuff was fake, or, at best, just a bunch of scammers preying on gullible people who want to believe in horror movie nonsense. But then, this happened. And now I don't know what to believe anymore. So here's how it all started. It was a Friday night in late October, and my best friend Tyler and I were sitting in a shitty 24-hour McDonald's in New York. Not one of the nice ones. This was the type of place where the ice cream machine was always broken, the floors felt sticky no matter how much they mopped, and the bathroom smelled like a crime scene. We were sitting there at 2 a.m., surrounded by drunk college kids and half-asleep Uber drivers, eating cold fries and scrolling through Reddit. Tyler was deep in one of his weird internet rabbit holes, talking about those haunted VHS tapes people claim to find, like old lost cartoons, cursed movies, stuff like that. And then he made the bet. Dude, I bet you $50 you can't find something actually disturbing, he said, wiping ketchup off his hoodie. Like, not some creepypasta BS. I mean real footage. Something that'll actually freak you out. I should have just laughed it off. I should have ignored him. But I was a little drunk, a little bored, and a lot overconfident. Bet. The hunt. At first, it was easy. I went on eBay and found a bunch of old VHS tapes labeled with vague, creepy titles like Do Not Watch or Banned TV Episode, but they all looked fake as hell. The descriptions were obviously written by some edgy teenager trying to make a quick buck. I went deeper, started looking through old Reddit threads, abandoned forums, even some sketchy Discord servers. That's when I found him. A user named RealHunter94. He ran a private marketplace specializing in forensic media. Basically, old police evidence, surveillance footage, interrogation tapes, crime scene recordings. Most of it was boring legal crap, but one listing caught my eye. It was titled, Unopened VHS, Evidence Room 1994, Private Auction Only. No description, just a single, grainy photo of a black VHS tape with a faded white label. Across the label, written in red ink, were the words, Confidential, do not release. I don't know what it was about that listing, but it gave me a bad feeling right away. Maybe it was the lack of details. Maybe it was the fact that it was locked behind a private auction, but something about it made my skin crawl. And that's exactly why I had to bid on it. I messaged RealHunter94, pretending to be a collector, and asked how to get in on the auction. He responded almost instantly. This isn't for just anyone. Are you sure you want in? I should have said no, but instead, I replied, absolutely. A minute later, he sent me a link to a private auction site, one of those old-school, sketchy-looking web pages that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. The auction was already in progress, and the price was climbing fast. $100, $300, $500. Who the hell was paying this much for an old VHS tape? I hesitated. I wasn't planning on actually spending money. I was just curious. But something about the way the numbers kept climbing made me nervous. Like, what was on this tape that made people want it so badly? I had a weird thought then. What if I just scared everyone off? So, as a joke, I placed a bid for $666, and the second I did, the auction ended. The package. My phone buzzed with a new message from Real Hunter 94. It's yours. No refunds. Expect delivery within 3 days. Wait. What? I was expecting someone to outbid me. I was hoping someone would outbid me, but no one did. I felt a weird sense of regret immediately. Not fear, not yet, just like I had made a mistake. Like I had just bought something I wasn't supposed to have. And it only got worse when the package actually arrived. It showed up 2 days later, faster than it should have. No return address, no sender info, just a small cardboard box wrapped in duct tape. It looked old. The cardboard was stained, like it had been sitting in a basement for years. My name was written on top in black marker, not printed, not on a label, just handwritten, which was weird, because I never gave him my address. Inside the box, buried under layers of crumpled newspaper, was the VHS tape. It looked exactly like the photo. Black plastic, faded white label, and across the front, written in smeared red ink, "Confidential, do not release." But that wasn't the only thing in the box. There was also a Polaroid photo. I pulled it out, feeling my stomach drop. It was a blurry image of a man sitting in an interrogation room. His hands were folded on the table. His face was half hidden by shadows, but there was something about him, something that made my chest tighten. I knew this man, or at least, I thought I did, because even though the picture was blurry, even though the lighting made it hard to see his features clearly, it looked exactly like my father. But here's the thing, my dad was never arrested. At least that's what he always told me. So why the hell was there an old evidence tape with his face on it? My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I stared at the Polaroid, my brain refusing to make sense of it. The longer I looked, the sicker I felt. The man in the photo, the man sitting in an interrogation room, hands folded like he was calmly answering some detective's questions, was my father. Or at least it looked like him. But that was impossible. My dad was never arrested. He never talked about anything like that. He was a normal guy, strict, maybe a little distant, but not some criminal sitting in an interrogation room. So what the hell was this? I looked at the VHS tape again. Confidential, do not release. The words felt heavier now, like a warning instead of a label. I should have thrown it out. I should have burned it. But instead, I grabbed the old VHS player I kept for nostalgia, shoved the tape in, and pressed play. And that's when everything in my life changed forever. The footage. The screen flickered to life. Static hissed in the speakers, distorting the image. The timestamp in the corner read, December 3rd, 1994, 2:16 a.m. A dark, windowless room came into focus. Not an interrogation room like I expected, but something else. Something worse. It looked like the basement of a police station. Concrete walls, a single metal chair in the center, a rusted drain in the floor. And then, A man was dragged into frame. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I felt like I was going to throw up, because the man being dragged in, thrashing, screaming, was my father. I froze. My body went completely numb. I wanted to believe it was some kind of sick joke, but I recognized him immediately. Same thick black hair, same square jaw, same deep-set eyes that I had inherited. He looked younger, probably in his late 20s, but it was him. Two men in police uniforms shoved him into the chair. One of them grabbed his head and yanked it back, while the other tightened something around his wrists. Zip ties. My father was sobbing, shaking his head violently, trying to scream through the duct tape covering his mouth. And then, someone else entered the frame. A third man. He wasn't in uniform. He wore a black suit, black gloves, and no badge. His face was blurred out, not by the tape, but like the footage had been altered. Whoever he was, he leaned down, putting his face close to my father's, and then he said something that made my blood turn to ice. "Shh. It's okay, Mr. Holloway. We know it's not really you." Holloway, my last name. I felt like my entire body had been dunked in freezing water. I wanted to turn the tape off. I wanted to pretend this never happened, throw the whole thing in the garbage, and walk away. But I didn't, because something inside me, some horrible, morbid need to know, forced me to keep watching. The man in the suit circled my father like a predator sizing up its prey. My dad was hyperventilating, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. The police officers stood completely still, staring ahead like they weren't even human, like they weren't even there. And then the suited man spoke again. "Where is he?" My dad shook his head violently, muffled sobs escaping through the duct tape. "We know that's not your face." I blinked. My breath caught in my throat. "What?" "We know you're wearing someone else's skin." My vision swam. I felt physically sick. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. It didn't make any sense. None of this made any sense. But the fear in my father's eyes, that was real. The suited man turned to one of the officers and nodded. The cop pulled out a knife, a long serrated hunting knife, and then he pressed it against my father's cheek. I gasped, clamping my hand over my mouth. My dad was screaming behind the duct tape, thrashing violently, but the zip ties held him in place. "We just need to see, Mr. Holloway." The suited man whispered it like a lullaby. And then, the cop started cutting. My father's screams became inhuman. The knife dug into his skin, peeling it downward like someone removing a Halloween mask. Blood poured down his chest, dripping onto the floor. His body convulsed, legs kicking so hard the chair scraped against the concrete. And then, the cop stopped. The suited man leaned in. And then, he smiled. "Ah." He sounded relieved. The camera zoomed in on my father's face, or what was left of it. The bottom half of his face was completely exposed now, raw and glistening, like fresh meat. But what made my stomach twist into knots, what made me nearly pass out, was what was underneath. Because it wasn't bone, it wasn't muscle, it was someone else's face. A second face, pale, lifeless, like it had been stretched over a skull that didn't belong to it. I slammed my laptop shut. My entire body was shaking. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled away from the table, my legs barely holding me up. My stomach lurched, and I barely made it to the sink before I started throwing up. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. I turned back toward the laptop, still feeling the ghost of those images burned into my brain. My father, the knife, the face underneath his face. I needed answers. I needed to find my dad. I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. My hands were so slick with sweat, I almost dropped it. It rang twice. And then, this number is no longer in service. My father was dead. At least the man I thought was my father was dead. Or worse, maybe he had never been alive at all. I stood in my kitchen, my phone clutched in my shaking hand, staring at the screen, as this number is no longer in service, glared back at me. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like my ribs would crack. I tried again. Voicemail. Again. Number disconnected. Again. Nothing. The nausea that had been boiling in my stomach since I watched that thing cut into my father's face crawled up my throat. My body went ice cold, like someone had drained all the blood out of me. My fingers felt stiff, foreign, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I turned my head slowly, like I was afraid someone was watching me. The apartment felt wrong. The air too thick, the walls too tight, the shadows too deep. I needed to find him. I needed to know. The drive. I grabbed my keys and sprinted to my car. The world outside felt too quiet. It was past midnight, but this was New York. There were always people, always movement. But tonight, nothing. The street was empty. The buildings looked wrong, like cardboard cutouts of a city instead of the real thing. I sped through the streets, running red lights, barely stopping at stop signs. The whole way, my brain was chewing itself alive, trying to make sense of what I had seen. That thing in the video, was it really my father? Or was my father the thing underneath? The idea made my whole body tense. It wasn't possible. It wasn't possible. People don't just wear other people's faces, unless they aren't really people. The house. I pulled up to my childhood home. The lights were off. No movement inside. No car in the driveway. But something felt wrong. You ever been somewhere familiar and suddenly felt like you didn't belong there anymore? Like something had shifted just slightly, just enough to make everything uncanny. That was how the house felt. Like it had been abandoned and rebuilt just a little bit off. I stepped out of the car. The air was thick, not foggy, but heavy, like something was pressing down on me. The driveway seemed longer than I remembered. The porch creaked louder under my feet. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Silence. Then, I heard something move inside. Not footsteps, not a voice. A wet, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. My spine turned to ice. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, but I didn't. I reached for the doorknob and twisted, unlocked. The door swung open, revealing the pitch-black hallway inside. The house smelled wrong. Not rotten, not exactly, but stale, thick, like wet leather left in the sun. I stepped inside. The air was damp, the floor sticky. My shoes made faint peeling noises as I moved forward. I tried to ignore it. Dad? Silence. My voice felt small, swallowed up by the dark. I moved toward the living room, my heart hammering against my ribs. The furniture was all wrong. Everything was pushed against the walls, like someone had cleared space in the middle of the room. The carpet had dark stains soaked into it, not red, but almost black, like blood that had been scrubbed and never really came out. And then, a creak from upstairs. I snapped my head toward the stairs, my breath catching in my throat. Someone was up there. Number something was up there. I moved, slow and careful, up the steps. Each creak under my feet felt deafening. The air smelled stronger here, thicker, like copper and sweat and something else. Something wrong. I reached the landing. My parents' bedroom door was open. The light was on. And inside, sitting on the edge of the bed, facing away from me, was my father, or at least the thing wearing his body. I stopped breathing. He was hunched over, his hands clasped together, his back rising and falling with slow, heavy breaths. And then, without turning around, he spoke. "I knew you'd come back, son." The thing that spoke like my father. His voice was wrong. It had the right tone, the right inflection, but something about it shivered in my ears, like it was made of layered recordings instead of an actual voice. I didn't move. I didn't speak, because I realized something horrible. He was wearing the same clothes from the VHS tape, the same blood-stained button-up, the same black slacks. His sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, exposing his forearms, and that's when I saw it. His skin was loose, like it didn't quite fit, like it had been stretched over something else. I took a step back. He twitched, not a flinch, not a normal human movement. It was a sharp, sudden jerk, like a puppet's strings being pulled. And then, slowly, agonizingly, he turned his head all the way around. I nearly screamed. His face. God, his face. It wasn't my father's. Not anymore. The skin was sagging, slipping, like a wet paper mask, barely clinging to a shape underneath. The edges of his mouth were splitting where the flesh didn't quite fit. His teeth, too many teeth, gleamed wet in the dim light. His eyes, they were staring at me, not like a person looks at someone, like a predator looks at something already dead. And then he smiled, and the smile kept going. His mouth stretched, tearing the corners of his lips wider, exposing gums that weren't human. And in that moment, standing there, frozen in absolute terror, I realized the worst thing of all. He wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to see if I was like him. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran. The house blurred past me in streaks of shadows and sickly yellow light. I hit the stairs so hard I nearly tripped, caught myself, and bolted for the front door. Behind me, I heard something move. Not footsteps, not a voice. A wet, tearing sound, like something shedding its skin. I didn't look back. I just ran. And behind me, I heard my father's voice, or at least the thing pretending to be my father. "Don't worry, son. We'll make you fit soon." I ran. I don't remember unlocking my car. I don't remember starting the engine. I barely remember slamming my foot onto the gas pedal. But I do remember the road, the way the streetlights flickered and warped as I sped past them, the way the world outside my window looked distorted, unreal, like a badly rendered simulation. And I remember the feeling, that cold, suffocating feeling in my chest, the kind of feeling you get when you just barely avoid a deadly car crash, when you step too close to the edge of a cliff, when your brain knows you should be dead, but somehow you aren't, because something unnatural let you go. The house disappeared in my rearview mirror, swallowed by the darkness. I kept my foot on the gas, forcing myself not to look back, even though every instinct in my body screamed that I was being watched, not chased, not hunted, watched. Like that thing inside my father's skin wanted me to leave, like it was letting me go on purpose. I don't know how long I drove. The whole world felt stretched, elongated, like time itself had warped around the last hour. It wasn't until I was nearly home that I realized something horrible. I had nowhere to go. The call. My father was gone. My mother had died when I was 12, or at least that's what I had been told. But after what I had just seen, after what I had just learned, how the hell could I trust that? How could I trust anything? I pulled into my apartment complex, breathing so hard I thought my lungs would split open. My hands were shaking so badly I had to use both of them just to put the car in park. My heart was pounding so violently in my chest that it hurt. I needed help. I needed to tell someone. I grabbed my phone. My fingers were slick with sweat, slipping against the glass as I scrolled through my contacts. I needed someone who would actually listen, someone who wouldn't think I was crazy. Tyler. Tyler was the one who had started all of this. He was the one who dared me to find something disturbing. He was the one who made the bet. I hit dial. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, click. Dude, what the hell? It's 3 a.m. His voice was groggy, thick with exhaustion, but I didn't care. Tyler, listen to me. My own voice sounded wrong, thin, breathless, hollow. I need you to come over, right now. Please, man. A pause. Then, are you drunk? No, just listen. I ran a hand through my hair, squeezing my eyes shut. It's about the tape, the one from the auction. Another pause. A long one. What about it? His voice wasn't groggy anymore. It was careful, like he already knew what I was going to say. I watched it. My throat was so dry I could barely get the words out. Tyler, I think my dad... I stopped, because the moment I started saying it out loud, the moment I tried to explain what I had seen, what I had learned, I realized how impossible it sounded. How could I tell him? How could I put into words the fact that my father, the man who had raised me, the man who had tucked me into bed as a kid, the man I had called Dad for 23 years, wasn't even human? How could I explain the thing that had been hiding under his skin? Where are you right now? His voice was different now, flat, emotionless, like the question wasn't his, like someone else was speaking through him. A sharp chill ran down my spine. What? I whispered. Where are you? I pulled the phone away from my ear. My breath hitched in my throat. The call was still active, but the timer had reset. 0 seconds, like someone else had answered. I slammed my thumb against the red button, my whole body tensing as I killed the call. And then, my phone buzzed. A new text, from Tyler's number. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, feeling like I was about to see something I wasn't meant to see. The message was short, simple. You don't fit yet, but you will. The visitor. I threw my phone across the room. I didn't care if I broke it. I didn't care if I never saw it again. I just wanted it gone. And then, something knocked at my front door. A single, slow, wet knock. I froze. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't even thinking. Knock, knock, knock. Each one sounded heavier than the last. I stepped backward. My body felt alien, disconnected, like I was just a passenger inside my own skin. Knock, knock, knock. I turned my head, just barely, just enough to see the peephole, and I almost screamed. There was an eye looking through. Not a normal eye. Too wide, too dark, too deep, like something had scooped it out of a human skull and pressed it against my door. Knock, knock, knock. And then, a voice. My father's voice. Let me in, son. I slammed my hands over my ears. I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't hear it. It's okay. We can make you fit now. Something slid under the door. A slip of paper. My hands were shaking violently as I looked down. It was a Polaroid, just like the one that had come with the tape. But this one was of me, sitting in a chair, hands tied, mouth covered in duct tape. And behind me, standing in the darkness, just out of focus, was my father, or at least the thing wearing his face. You'll fit soon, son. just like I did. I bought a file from the dark web that claims Area 51 was just a distraction. The real base is somewhere even more isolated. I don't know if I have much time left. They know I saw it. And if you're reading this, if I disappear after posting this, just know that Area 51 is a lie, a distraction, a carefully manufactured joke to keep people from asking the real questions, because the real base is in one of the most isolated places on Earth, a place where no one would ever think to look. Bouvet Island. You probably haven't heard of it. It's a small, uninhabited island in the South Atlantic Ocean, about 1,000 miles from Antarctica. No ports, no airports, just ice, cliffs, and stormy waters. Officially, it's owned by Norway, but there's no permanent human presence there. Just an old, abandoned weather station. At least, that's what they want you to believe. The truth is, there's something hidden beneath Bouvet Island, something that shouldn't exist, and I've found proof of it. But now, they're coming for me. It started with a conspiracy thread. You ever get sucked into one of those late-night internet rabbit holes, where you start on one thing, like a random YouTube video, and hours later, you're reading classified documents that make your stomach turn? That's how this started. It was around 2 a.m., and I was on Reddit, scrolling through our conspiracy. I don't usually buy into that stuff, but something about this post caught my eye. Area 51 is a joke. The real facility is in Bouvet Island. The post had a bunch of links, declassified military documents, satellite images, forum discussions about missing ships near the island. At first, I thought it was just another crazy theory, but then I saw a comment from a user named DeepVault17. You're looking in the wrong place. Look at Ny-Ålesund. Follow the signals. Now, I'd never heard of Ny-Ålesund before, but a quick Google search told me it's a tiny research settlement in Svalbard, Norway, one of the northernmost inhabited places on Earth. Here's where things got weird. Ny-Ålesund has one of the largest satellite ground stations in the world. It's a joint operation between the US, China, and multiple European countries. Think about that. China and the US don't agree on anything, but they're both funding a massive satellite station in an isolated Arctic village. Why? Because people have tracked radio signals from Ny-Ålesund bouncing towards Bouvet Island. Now I was hooked. I spent the next 2 weeks going deeper. I found reports of missing ships near Bouvet, strange seismic activity, and radio signals detected from under the island. But no matter how much I searched, I couldn't find anything solid. Then I made the biggest mistake of my life. I went to the dark web, buying the file. I had used the dark web before, not for anything illegal, mostly curiosity. I knew how to stay anonymous, how to access hidden forums without getting myself on some government watch list. And that's how I found the marketplace. It was buried in an old conspiracy forum. People were selling leaked government documents, fake passports, even security camera footage. And one listing made my stomach drop. Bouvet Island Facility, partial declassified file, 0.05 Bitcoin. That was around $2,000. The description was short. If you're smart, you won't buy this. There was only one review. The account had been deleted, but the comment remained. I made a mistake. God help us all. I hesitated, but I had come too far, so I paid. 5 minutes later, I got a link to an encrypted zip file and a final message from the seller. If you open this, it's already too late. The footage. Inside the zip file were two things: a government document, heavily redacted, a security camera video. I opened the document first. It contained a location. Coordinates: 54 degrees, 25 minutes south, 3 degrees, 22 minutes east, Bouvet Island facility. Name: Olav Fove Research Station, decommissioned 1996. Unofficial designation: Vardohus facility. Primary operations: human experimentation, biocontainment subjects, psychologically unstable. Test cases: containment, risk, extreme. My blood ran cold. Olav Fove Research Station is real. Officially, it was an old Norwegian weather station, shut down in 1996. But what if it was never really abandoned? Then I played the video. The man in the cell. It was security footage, dated March 9th, 2023. At first, it just showed a hallway, metallic walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the kind of place that just feels wrong. The camera cycled through different rooms, storage areas, labs, a control center, all empty. Then the feed cut to a holding cell. Inside was a man, or at least I think it was a man. His skin looked gray. His arms were covered in deep scars. His pupils were too large, almost swallowing his irises completely. He was pacing, muttering something, but the audio was distorted. Then he stopped. He turned to the camera, and he smiled. Not a normal smile, a knowing smile, like he was aware that someone, me, was watching. Then the feed cut to black. No static, no warning, just gone. That's when my power went out. Not my internet, my entire apartment. I sat there in pure darkness, heart pounding. Then my phone vibrated. A text message. Unknown number. Turn back. I swear on everything, I almost threw my phone across the room. Then another text came in. You don't understand what you're looking at. I should have shut everything down. I should have deleted everything. But instead, I opened my front door and found a package. No label, no return address, just a small plain box. Inside was a USB drive and a note. If you really want the truth, plug this in. But once you see it, there's no going back. I should have thrown it away. I should have burned it. But I didn't. I plugged it in. And that's when my nightmare really started. I should have destroyed it. I should have burned it, smashed it into pieces, thrown it into the nearest sewer, and forgotten it ever existed. But I didn't. I plugged it in. The second my laptop read the USB, my screen glitched. Just for a second, static flickered, the cursor froze, and then it opened on its own. No files, no folders, just a single black screen with white text. A loading bar appeared. Downloading. 0%. I tried to eject the USB. Wouldn't let me. I tried to shut down my laptop. Nothing. My heart started pounding. Then the text changed. You should not have done that. My webcam light turned on, and that's when I knew I wasn't alone. Someone was watching me. I ripped the USB out. My screen flashed blue, then went black. Dead. The whole laptop. Fried. And then I heard it. A tap. From my window. It was 3 a.m. My apartment is on the 6th floor. There is no balcony. I turned my head so slowly, it felt like my bones were made of glass. My throat tightened. My vision tunneled. The window was fogged up. Breath marks. Something had exhaled against the glass. Then, right in front of my eyes, a handprint appeared. Long fingers. Too long. Smudging against the surface, dragging down the glass. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then, a knock. 3. Slow, deliberate taps. Knock, knock, knock. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember grabbing the kitchen knife. I just remember backing away from the window, knife shaking in my grip, my mind screaming at me to run. And then, just as I blinked, the handprint was gone. No sound, no movement, just gone. And my apartment was silent. I stayed awake until sunrise. When I finally got the courage to check the window, the glass was ice cold, and there were no footprints on the fire escape. The missing people. I should have stopped. I should have left it alone. But after what happened that night, I needed answers. I took my fried laptop to a repair shop. The guy working there, some dude in his 50s, with a beer gut and nicotine-stained fingers, took one look at it and said, "You download some government shit or something?" I laughed it off, but he wasn't joking. Motherboard's toast. BIOS is wiped, like someone detonated a digital nuke in your system. I've seen this before, man. You pissed off the wrong people. I left without saying a word. That night, I used my phone to search for missing persons cases connected to Bouvet Island, and that's when I found it. A forum, deep web, no official name, just a string of numbers as a URL. The header image was grainy satellite footage of Bouvet Island. The tagline, "We warned them. They didn't listen." There were names, dozens of them, people who had either vanished near Bouvet or talked about it online and then disappeared. Dr. Elias Kruger, German marine biologist, sent to research Bouvet in 2016. Boat returned empty. No trace of the crew. Jonathan Phelps, amateur radio operator. In 2021, he claimed to have intercepted a military transmission from under Bouvet Island. 1 week later, his house burned down with him inside. Ruled an electrical fire. Lena Arvidsson, Swedish journalist, investigating U.S. military activity in Antarctica. Flight disappeared over the South Atlantic. Black box never recovered. And then, at the very bottom of the list, Deep Vault 17, the same username from the Reddit thread, the one who told me to look at Nye Orsund. Last seen online 2 weeks ago. His last post was just a single image. A door, steel, bolted shut, a small glass window in the center, like a containment cell. Scratched into the metal, written in what looked like blood, were 4 words. "It can hear you." The woman in the video. That's when I got the email. No subject, no sender, just an attachment, a video file. I should have ignored it. I should have deleted it on the spot, but I didn't. I opened it. The footage was grainy, black and white, time-stamped 4 days ago. It showed a room, clinical, sterile, metal walls, a single chair bolted to the floor. A woman sat in it. She was young, pale, wearing a hospital gown. Her hair was matted, her wrists bruised, like she had been restrained. Her eyes, I will never forget her eyes. She looked empty, not sad, not afraid, just hollow. For the first minute, she didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. Then, without warning, she looked directly at the camera. Her mouth opened, wider than humanly possible, and she started screaming. I don't mean screaming in fear. I mean inhuman, blood-curdling, ear-shattering shrieking that made my vision go white and my skull vibrate like my brain was being ripped apart. But the worst part, there was no sound. Her mouth was open, her throat was vibrating, her entire body was convulsing with the force of the scream. But I heard nothing. Then the lights in the room flickered, the walls shook, and something behind the camera moved. I didn't see it, but I felt it. Something big, something hungry, something that had been waiting. Then, right before the video cut to black, The woman stopped screaming. She closed her mouth, and she smiled. Right at me, like she knew I was watching, like she knew I was next. They're here. I don't remember closing my laptop. I don't remember how long I sat there shaking, but I remember the knock at my door. Not from the window this time. From inside my apartment. I am not alone. The knock came from inside my apartment. Not the front door. Not the window. From the hallway. Inside. I didn't move. My heart wasn't just pounding. It was slamming against my ribs, like my body was trying to break itself apart before whatever was standing in the dark hallway could. One knock. Two knocks. Then silence. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and uneven. My ears were ringing. My vision was tunneling, my body shutting itself down from sheer terror. And then, something whispered, a voice so close to my ear that I could feel the warmth of it. Open the door. I swung my knife. Nothing, just empty air. But something had been there. I felt it. The way the air shifted, the way my body reacted before my mind could. The silence stretched. Then, the hallway light flickered, and I saw it. A shadow, standing just outside my bedroom doorway. Not quite a shape, not quite a person. It was wrong, like a person badly drawn from memory. Too tall, arms too thin, a jaw that didn't quite connect. It was looking at me. I couldn't see eyes, but I felt it. Felt something peeling me apart, layer by layer, dissecting me with a gaze that wasn't a gaze at all, just hunger. And then it took a step forward. The smiling man. I ran. Out of my room, out of my apartment, barefoot down the stairs. I didn't even grab my keys. I just ran until I was outside, into the street, into the lights, into something real. My breath came in gasps. People were staring. Cars slowed down, but I didn't care. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I opened my camera. I turned it toward my apartment window. And there, standing in the dark, staring down at me from my 6th floor window, was a man. Not the thing from my hallway, not the shadow that had whispered in my ear. A man, but his smile was too wide, lips stretched back, far too far, showing every single one of his teeth. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe, just smiled. And then, as I watched, he raised one hand and waved. That's when my phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. Go back inside. It's cold out. I almost threw my phone into traffic. I didn't go back. I got in my car and drove. The gas station. I don't even remember how long I drove for. At some point, I pulled into a gas station, middle of nowhere. Fluorescent lights buzzing like flies trapped under plastic. I went inside. The guy behind the counter barely looked at me. He was watching a tiny TV, some late-night infomercial about kitchen knives that could cut through bone. I grabbed a water bottle. My hands were still shaking. My clothes were damp with sweat. I turned to the cashier. Hey, my voice cracked. Have you seen anything weird tonight? The guy turned his head, slow as oil dripping from a rusted pipe, and he smiled, just like the man in my window. And then he said, "You shouldn't have watched the video." My stomach dropped. I took a step back. My body was already reacting, already knowing I had to run. Then he did something worse. He turned the TV toward me, and I saw the video playing. The woman, the one from the USB, still in her chair, still staring at the camera. But this time, she wasn't screaming. She was laughing. The tape. I ran back to my car, locked the doors, checked the back seat 3 times. The cashier was still standing there, inside the gas station, staring at me through the glass, smiling. I drove. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. My phone buzzed. Another text. Stop running. You're only making it worse. I turned my phone off. But before the screen went black, I saw my reflection. And behind me, in the back seat, a smile. I slammed on the brakes, threw open the door. The back seat was empty. I was losing my mind. I needed help. So I did something stupid. I went to a friend, the apartment. His name was Greg. We hadn't talked in months, but he was ex-military. If anyone could help me, it was him. I banged on his door. Greg, man, open up. I need help. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened, and Greg was standing there. His eyes were black. Not his irises, his entire eyes. I stumbled backward. Greg, and he smiled. The truth. I don't remember what happened next. I remember running. I remember Greg's voice behind me. But it wasn't his voice. It was hers. The woman from the video. Why do you keep running? I don't know where I am now. I don't know what's real. I haven't slept in days. But I know one thing. Bouvet Island is not empty. And whatever is there, it's already spreading. I think I brought it back. I think I let it out. I think I can hear it smiling. There are gaps in my memory now. Pieces missing. Entire hours gone. But I know one thing. It followed me. Number, I brought it back. And now it's spreading. I can feel it. Like a rot inside my brain. A sickness that isn't a sickness. Something whispering between my thoughts, waiting for me to slip, to let it in. I haven't slept in days. I don't think I even can anymore. Because when I close my eyes, I see it. A door, metal, bolted shut, and something on the other side. Something waiting. And every time I blink, the door opens a little more. The dead city. I don't remember how I got here. The last clear memory I have is running, sprinting through the streets after Greg's door swung open, after I saw his eyes, and then nothing. Now I'm here. A town that shouldn't exist. Rows of rotting houses, paint peeling, windows shattered, no streetlights, no sounds, just dead air. I don't know if I drove here, or if it brought me here, but I'm not alone, because I can hear them. Low, wet voices slipping through the cracks of the empty buildings, laughing, not normal laughter, wet laughter, gurgling, like someone drowning on their own breath. And the smell, rot, thick and heavy, sweet almost, like fruit left out in the sun too long. I see something moving in the distance, a figure standing in the middle of the street, tall, too tall, mouth too wide, and when I look at it, it waves. Number, not waves, it beckons, and I think I know it. Number, I think it knows me. The man in the photographs. I break into one of the houses. The front door is already open. Inside, everything is wrong. The walls aren't walls. Not really. They breathe. The wallpaper pulses, expands, contracts, like lungs. I ignore it. I move deeper. There's a staircase leading down. A basement. My feet move on their own. I shouldn't go down there. I know I shouldn't. But I do. Because something is waiting for me. The basement is small, cold. A single light bulb swings from the ceiling. And on the wall, photographs. Hundreds of them. I step closer. My breath is ragged, shallow. The photographs are of me. Taken from my window. Taken from inside my car. Taken from my own fucking bedroom. I reach for one, my fingers trembling. The photograph is warm and wet, like skin. I turn it over. There's writing on the back. 3 words. Let it in. The thing in the walls. I hear it before I see it. A low, wet breathing, coming from the walls. Number, not the walls. Something behind them. Something inside them. I back away. My stomach is twisting. My vision is blurring. The sound is everywhere. A low, guttural chuckle. First turn, and there, at the top of the stairs, it stands, mouth stretched back, grinning, and then it speaks, not with words, with laughter, my laughter. It's mimicking me, repeating every sound I've ever made, every scream. It tilts its head, lips curling back too far. I don't see teeth. I see rows of fingers, hands, reaching out from its throat. 1,000 hands, pressed together, twitching, groping, searching. I run. The red door. I don't remember escaping the house. I don't remember how I got to where I am now, but I know I'm underground, a tunnel, carved from wet black stone, and at the end of it, a red door, the same one I've seen in my dreams, the same one I've been running from. Something is behind it, waiting, and I think I'm going to open it, because maybe this isn't about running. Maybe it's about letting go. Maybe it's about becoming. I press my hand against the door. The wood is warm, and on the other side, something knocks. Once, twice, and then I smile. The door is breathing. I can feel it under my palm. Slow, rhythmic pulses, expanding and contracting like a living thing. The wood is warm, too warm, and the moment I touch it, something touches back. Fingers, long, thin, pressing against the other side of the wood. Waiting. The knock comes again. Software patient. Something on the other side wants me to open it. And the worst part? I want to open it too. There's something in my head now. Something that wasn't there before. A voice, a whisper, a hunger. I don't know, but it's smiling. I can feel it stretching my skin from the inside out. The door is opening, and I'm not afraid. The pit, I step forward, and the door peels open like flesh. The wood splits, curling back like burnt paper, revealing the blackness beyond. Not just darkness, a void, an absence of everything, a space where light and sound don't exist. The air reeks, not of death, not of rot, something worse. The smell of things that should never have existed. And in the blackness, something moves. I don't see it. I feel it, the weight of it, the vast, endless presence of something bigger than thought, bigger than understanding. And it is looking at me. It has been waiting for me. And then it speaks, not with words, with me, my voice, my memories, my thoughts, bleeding out of the darkness in a sound that is too familiar, too wrong. It knows me. It has always known me. And it is hungry. The smiling ones. I step into the blackness, and the world peels away. My body stretches, splits. My skin shreds like paper soaked in blood. But there is no pain. There is only understanding. The world beyond the door was never real. Not the city, not the people, not me. All of it, a lie. A game played by something older than time. Something buried beneath Bouvet Island. Something that has been calling us back. We are all pieces of it. Fractured thoughts, shattered faces, reflections of something bigger. And now I am becoming whole again. I am remembering. We built the base beneath Bouvet Island. We opened the door, and we let it out. Now we walk the streets of the world, in bodies that look like yours. But we are not you. We are smiling, and we are waiting, because soon you will smile too. You will let us in, and then you will never leave. Not really. Not ever. I paid a dark web hacker to uncover the truth about the Illuminati. The next day, I received a blank envelope with a single I drawn on it. All right, so before I even start, I just want to say, I know how stupid this sounds. If I was reading this, I'd be calling myself a dumbass too. Trust me, I get it. But this isn't one of those I read some spooky shit on the internet and got scared stories. No, this is real. And I wish to God it wasn't. I should have just minded my own business. I should have never asked questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. Because now, I can't sleep. I can't think straight. I see things, people watching me, patterns in places they shouldn't be. My phone rings in the middle of the night, and no one is on the other end. And it all started with one stupid question. Is the Illuminati real? I've always been the kind of guy who falls down internet rabbit holes. You know how it goes. You're up late, scrolling through random conspiracy threads, watching those eerie banned documentaries on YouTube, reading posts on r/NOSLEEP until your brain starts playing tricks on you. Most of it, bullshit. Just paranoid people making up stories to entertain themselves. But sometimes you find things that feel real. It was about 4 months ago. I was messing around on the deep web, not doing anything illegal, just lurking. I like to dig through old forums, abandoned sites with zero activity, places where people left digital ghosts of themselves. That night, I stumbled across a site I'd never seen before. The URL was just a string of numbers and letters. No real name, no branding. The homepage was empty, just a black screen with one message in red text. What do you want to know? There was a text box underneath, like a search bar. At first, I thought it was a joke, some weird ARG. But when I scrolled down, I saw a list of posts. It looked like a message board, but there were no usernames, just timestamps and questions. People were asking all sorts of insane things. Where is the real Area 51? What happened to the missing Malaysia flight? Is the government tracking us through social media? Why do celebrities disappear for months and then come back looking different? And below each question, there were responses. Some were just one-liners, cryptic, vague, the kind of stuff that made you think the person answering was just screwing around. But other answers, they were detailed, uncomfortably detailed. One guy asked about a politician, some senator from New York I had barely heard of. The answer was a link. I clicked it. It was a Google Drive folder. Inside was a set of pictures. One showed the senator sitting in a McDonald's, talking to a man in a black suit. Another showed him getting into an unmarked car. The last one, a live screenshot from what looked like a security camera of the senator in his bedroom, brushing his teeth. The timestamp on the photo, 5 minutes ago. That's when I realized whoever was running this site, they weren't just guessing, they knew things. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was stupidity, probably both. But I found myself typing in a question. Is the Illuminati real? I hesitated before hitting enter. It felt stupid, like I was one of those tinfoil hat weirdos, but I had to know. I pressed enter. For a second, nothing happened. Then a reply appeared. $500. I blinked. That was it. Just a price tag. No explanation. Underneath, there was a Bitcoin wallet address. At this point, my heart was pounding. It was probably a scam, right? Some dude pretending to be an all-knowing hacker just to make a quick buck. But what if it wasn't? I told myself I'd sleep on it. I closed my laptop, walked away. But the question, it burned in my brain. What if this was my one chance to know the truth? At 3 a.m., I gave in. I converted some cash into Bitcoin, sent exactly $500 to the address, and I waited. The next morning, I checked the site. My question was gone. Not just unanswered, completely gone. like it had never been posted in the first place. For a second, I thought I'd been scammed, that I had just thrown away $500 on a dumb internet prank. But then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., I got an email. No subject, no sender info, just a message. You asked the wrong question. And below that, a Google Drive link. I stared at it for a long time. My hands were sweating. Every instinct in my body was telling me not to click it, but I did. Inside the folder, there were 3 things: a text file labeled "Read Me," a 13-second video, a single blurry image. I clicked the text file first. It contained only one sentence. It's not about whether the Illuminati is real. It's about whether you were meant to ask. My stomach dropped. I didn't like how that sounded. It wasn't an answer. It was a warning. I clicked the video next. It started with static, white noise. But at the 9-second mark, there was a flash of something else. I paused, rewound, scrubbed through frame by frame, and there, hidden in one frame, was an image. It showed a man in a black suit, standing in an alleyway. His face was blurred, not pixelated, but distorted, like someone had smeared his features into nothing. But the worst part, he was looking directly at the camera. I closed the video. My heart was hammering. I wanted to shut my laptop, to forget this whole thing. But there was one more file. The image. I opened it. It was a grainy black and white shot of a McDonald's drive-thru. Seemed normal at first, just an ordinary restaurant. But then I saw it. A single black SUV in the drive-thru lane. The driver's side window was rolled down just a crack, and inside, barely visible in the shadows, was a single staring eye, staring directly at the camera. I slammed my laptop shut. My skin felt cold. My apartment, suffocating. I felt like something was watching me, like the shadows in the corners had weight, had eyes. And then, knock, knock, knock. I jumped. My blood went ice cold. Someone was at my door, but when I looked through the peephole, there was no one there. Just an envelope, plain white, no name, no stamp, with a single eye drawn on the front. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that envelope. My brain felt like it had short-circuited. It was just sitting there on my doormat, plain white, no return address, no stamp, like someone had hand-delivered it. But it was the symbol on the front that made my stomach twist into knots. A single, crudely drawn eye. Black ink, messy lines, like it had been sketched in a hurry. It wasn't just a drawing. It was watching me. I should have left it. Should have grabbed my keys, walked out, never looked back. But my hands moved on their own. I bent down, picked it up. The paper felt wrong, not normal. Too smooth, too stiff, almost waxy, like it had been laminated. And the weight, heavier than a normal envelope, like there was something inside. I turned it over. The flap wasn't sealed. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, typed. 3 words. You were seen. I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine, slow and invasive, like a spider weaving its web around my bones. I turned the paper over. There was nothing else. No explanation. No instructions. Just a single, overwhelming message. Someone saw me. Someone knew. My first instinct was to run, pack a bag, get out, disappear. But my body wasn't listening. I just stood there, paper in one hand, envelope in the other, my pulse hammering in my ears. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. I nearly dropped everything. My hands were slick with sweat, my breathing uneven. I fumbled to pull my phone from my pocket. The screen was already on. One new message. No sender, just a link. A Google Drive folder. My breath hitched. Another one. My gut screamed at me to ignore it, to throw my phone across the room, to forget this ever happened. But I couldn't. With a shaking thumb, I tapped the link. The folder opened. There was only one file inside. A video. The thumbnail was dark, shadowy. A street, maybe. A parking lot. I swallowed hard. Tapped it. The video started. Security footage. Black and white, slightly grainy. Timestamp in the corner. 3:33 a.m. My apartment building's front entrance. My blood ran cold. For the first 10 seconds, nothing happened. The street was empty. Just flickering streetlights. A couple of parked cars. Everything silent and still. Then, a black SUV pulled up across the street. I stopped breathing. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, wearing a black suit. Face, blurred. Not pixelated, not out of focus. Blurred, like someone had taken an eraser to his features and smudged them into nothing. My body locked up. He walked toward my building. Step by step, slow, deliberate. He stopped in front of the entrance, looked directly at the camera, and then he smiled. Not a normal smile, a knowing smile. Like he was in on some cosmic joke I'd never understand. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled something out. A white envelope. He bent down, slid it under the door. Then he straightened, stared into the camera for 5 more seconds, still smiling. Then he turned around, walked back to the SUV, and drove off. The video ended. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I just sat there, phone in hand, replaying the image of that faceless man grinning at the camera like he knew I was watching. And that's when I realized something. The security camera footage, it wasn't from my apartment's cameras. It was from theirs. They weren't just watching me. They were showing me how easy it was to get to me. How easy it was to walk up to my front door, leave a message, and disappear. No trace, no evidence, just a simple reminder. You were seen. I don't remember the next few hours. I think I blacked out, not literally, but mentally. My body was moving, pacing the apartment, locking the doors, checking the windows, but my mind was blank. Like my brain was trying to shut itself down. Like if I didn't process what was happening, maybe it wouldn't be real. At some point, I sat on the floor, staring at my laptop. The deep web forum, Black Zoe Ut's post. It was gone. The entire thread, deleted, like it had never existed. I tried searching for the site again. Nothing. The URL wasn't working anymore. The place I found that question, the thing that started all of this, it was erased. Around 6 a.m., my doorbell rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I grabbed the nearest object, a kitchen knife, and crept toward the door. Looked through the peephole. A delivery guy, FedEx, holding a small cardboard box. I forced myself to breathe. Opened the door. "Package for you," he said. My hands felt disconnected from my body as I took the box. It was light. No label. No sender information. I watched the guy walk back to his truck and drive off. Closed the door. I set the package on my kitchen table. Just stared at it. A part of me wanted to throw it away without opening it. Just burn it. Pretend it never arrived. But I already knew I wouldn't. I had to see. I tore the tape, opened the flaps. Inside, there was a small square object wrapped in brown paper. No bubble wrap, no protective packaging. I picked it up, peeled off the paper. It was a Polaroid. I turned it over, and my whole body went cold. It was a picture of me, sleeping. The angle, it was taken from inside my apartment. I nearly dropped it. My hand started shaking violently. I turned the Polaroid back over. On the white border, written in red ink, "Stop looking." I dropped it, staggered back. My chest was tightening, my vision blurring. The air felt wrong, thick and heavy, pressing against my lungs. That picture, that meant someone had been inside my apartment, watching me, standing over my bed while I slept. I turned, looked at my bedroom door, at the closet, the space under my bed. My skin prickled with something primal, something that whispered, "You are not alone." And then, something scratched against the closet door. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, staring at the closet door, my entire body locked in place, because I had heard it. A noise, a scratch, a slow, deliberate drag of something dull and sharp against wood. Not loud, not frantic, calculated, like something was inside, waiting, watching. I was not alone. My stomach felt like it was twisting into itself, my skin crawling with the kind of primal terror that does not go away. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, to get out, to not open that door. But I couldn't leave, because the photo was still on the floor. The Polaroid, the proof, that picture of me sleeping. The realization hit me like ice water to the face. That wasn't just any photo. It wasn't taken from outside my window. It wasn't a long lens shot from across the street. It was taken from inside this apartment, which meant whoever took it never left. I felt something shift behind the door. The wooden panels groaned ever so slightly. My heart stopped. I took one shaky step back, my knees locking up, my fingers tightening around the kitchen knife, like it would actually protect me. Another noise. Software slow. Breathing. Something inside that closet was breathing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to do anything except what I was about to do. But I had to know. I had to see. I reached forward, every nerve in my body on fire. My hand touched the doorknob. It was warm, like someone had been holding it from the other side. I twisted. The door swung open, and nothing. Just a closet. Dark. Silent. Empty. For a single, fleeting second, I almost laughed, almost convinced myself that I had imagined it, that the fear had gotten to me, twisted reality into something it wasn't. Then I looked down and saw the footprints, bare, human, leading out from the inside of the closet, but not into the room. They stopped right where I was standing, like something had been standing there all along, behind me. I spun around, knife raised. Nothing. No one. But the apartment didn't feel empty anymore. I don't remember the next 10 minutes. I think my brain shut down. I must have run through the entire apartment, checking every door, every window, opening every cabinet, tearing the place apart, looking for some kind of logical explanation. But I didn't find one. Nothing was open. Nothing was broken. No signs of forced entry. No signs of exit. Whoever had been here, whoever had taken that photo, they were never supposed to leave. I must have blacked out again, because the next thing I remember, I was sitting on my couch, my hand still gripping the knife so tight, my knuckles were white, and my phone was ringing. I jumped so hard, I nearly cut myself. It was an unknown number. I didn't want to answer. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. And the second I pressed the phone to my ear, I heard it, breathing, slow, shallow, close, like someone was on the other end, listening. I opened my mouth. My throat was dry, words dying before they could leave. And then, finally, in a voice that was so distorted, so unnatural, so wrong, they spoke. "Stop looking." I froze. The line went dead. Silence. I dropped the phone. The walls felt like they were closing in, the air thick and suffocating. Then, a notification, a text. No sender, just a photo. I didn't want to open it, but I did. And when I saw it, I think I stopped existing for a full 5 seconds, because it was a picture of me, sitting on the couch, holding my phone, right now, and behind me, just barely visible in the shadows, a figure, tall, faceless, standing in the closet. The human brain has a defense mechanism, a fail-safe. When something is too horrifying, too unnatural, too impossible to process, it shuts down. That's what happened to me. My mind refused to understand what I was seeing. That photo, a picture of me, sitting on my own couch, in real time. And behind me, inside the closet I had just checked, stood a figure. Tall, faceless, close enough to touch me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. If I turned around and saw it, really saw it, I knew something inside me would snap. So I ran. I didn't grab my keys. I didn't grab my wallet. I didn't even put on shoes. I bolted out of my apartment barefoot, full sprint down the hallway, not caring who saw, not caring if I looked insane. I hit the stairwell. My foot slipped on the cold concrete. I barely caught myself before I fell face first down 3 flights. My heart was hammering against my ribs, lungs burning, but I did not stop running. I burst out the front doors of my building into the cold night air. Empty streets, no cars, no people. But something was wrong. The streetlights, they were flickering, not in that normal busted bulb kind of way. This was synchronized, rhythmic, like a pattern, like a message. On, office, on, office. I spun around, scanning the buildings, the rooftops, the dark windows staring back at me like empty eye sockets. I was being watched. I felt it. A pressure, a presence, like the entire city had turned its gaze onto me. And then, from somewhere deep inside the shadows, a voice, low, garbled, impossible to place. It wasn't human. You were seen. The words weren't spoken. They were placed in my head, like a thought that didn't belong to me. I ran. I don't remember how long I ran for. I don't remember where I went. At some point, I ended up inside a 24-hour McDonald's, the kind that looks sterile and artificial, like it was designed by someone who has never actually been inside a restaurant before. Bright lights, white tiles, security cameras in every corner. Safe. There were a few other people inside. Drunk college kids, a homeless guy muttering to himself, a bored cashier scrolling through his phone. Normal. Everything looked normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had brought something with me, that whatever had been in my closet, whatever had taken that picture, was still here, just out of sight, just watching. I ordered a black coffee, not because I wanted one, but because I needed something to hold, something real. I sat in the corner, back against the wall, eyes on the entrance, waiting. For what? I didn't know. Then, my phone buzzed. A single notification. No name, no number, just a message. I swallowed hard. My hand shook as I tapped it open. One word. Look. My breath hitched. Slowly, I lifted my head, and through the large glass window, across the parking lot. There it was, the black SUV, parked under a flickering streetlight. Engine off. No one inside. At least, that's what I thought, until the window rolled down. Just an inch. Just enough to see it. A single, staring eye, watching me. My body moved before my brain did. I jumped up, knocking over my coffee. The hot liquid splashed onto the floor, but I didn't care. I was already heading for the bathroom. I needed a mirror. I needed to see if I was still alone inside my own skin. The bathroom was empty, Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everything feel too bright, too sharp, too fake. I gripped the sink, staring into the mirror. My reflection looked wrong, not distorted, not inhuman, just off. Like I was looking at a version of myself that was slightly different in ways I couldn't understand, like something had been rewritten. I leaned in closer. My pupils were dilated. My skin was pale. There was a tremor in my hands I couldn't control. Then, the lights flickered, and in the split second of darkness, I saw it, standing directly behind me. A man in a black suit. No face, just a hole where his mouth should be. My scream never left my throat, because when the lights came back, he was gone. I don't know how I got home. 1 second, I was in the McDonald's bathroom, heart threatening to tear its way out of my chest. The next, I was standing outside my apartment building. The door was open, just a crack, like someone was waiting for me to come back inside. I should have left. I should have never come back, but I was so tired. Too tired to think, too tired to run, like whatever was happening to me had already won. I stepped inside. The air was heavy. Wrong. Like the walls had shifted while I was gone. Like I had stepped into a place that looked like my apartment, but wasn't. The closet door was still open, but now there was something inside. Not a person, not an object, just a shape, a void, like a human shadow, with no body to cast it. It turned toward me, and in that moment, I understood. I had been looking for answers, but they had been looking for me, and now they had found me. I don't know why I stepped inside. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was insanity, maybe it was the realization that it didn't matter anymore. They had already gotten in, they had already won. My apartment wasn't my apartment anymore. It looked the same, but it wasn't. The air was thick, humid, breathing. The lights flickered in a slow, rhythmic pattern. On, office. On, office. I felt watched, not like before. Before, it had been subtle. The way you feel when someone is staring at you from across a room, their eyes just lingering a second too long. But now it was palpable, like invisible hands pressing against my skin, like something was sitting just beneath the surface of reality, waiting for me to notice it. And in the center of it all, the closet. The door was still open, and the shadow was still there, not moving, not reacting, just waiting. I took a step forward. The floor groaned beneath my weight, like it didn't want me there. A part of me wanted to leave, wanted to run, get out, disappear, before whatever was inside that closet reached me. But I couldn't, because I knew something now. I was never supposed to leave. This wasn't about the Illuminati. It was never about the Illuminati. It was never about secrets or truths or some grand conspiracy. It was about me, about the fact that I had looked for something I was never meant to find, and they saw me do it. Now I had a choice. I could fight it, try to run, try to leave, try to pretend this wasn't happening, or I could step forward. I could let it happen. I could become part of it. I don't know why I moved. I don't know why my body ignored the screams inside my head. I just know that my feet kept walking. One step, then another, until I was standing in front of the closet, face to face with the shadow, the void, the thing that wasn't a thing. It moved, not like a person, not like anything human. It shifted, melted, bled into reality, stretching and twisting in ways my brain couldn't understand. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out, because the shadow, it reached into me. I need you to understand something. It didn't grab me. It didn't touch me. It just entered me, like water filling a glass, like ink bleeding into paper. It crawled into my skin, into my bones, into my mind, pouring itself into every empty space I had ever had. And suddenly, I wasn't me anymore. I was rewritten. My thoughts weren't my thoughts. My memories weren't my memories. My body wasn't my body. I saw things I wasn't supposed to see, things that don't exist, but do, places that have never been built, but stand in plain sight, people that shouldn't be alive, but are still watching us, the patterns, the codes, the way everything connects. I understood it now, all of it, every thread, every piece, every impossible, horrifying, unspeakable truth, and it knew I understood. The shadow, the thing that wasn't a thing, the thing that had been inside my apartment this whole time. It didn't need to chase me. It didn't need to hurt me. It just needed to show me. Because once you see it, really see it, you can't go back. I woke up the next morning like nothing had happened. No mess, no blood, no signs of struggle. The closet was closed. The apartment was silent. Normal. Too normal. Like the universe had reset itself overnight. Like everything that happened had been erased. But I knew it wasn't a dream. I knew because when I looked at my phone, the photo was gone. The messages, the emails, the deep web forum, erased. Like none of it had ever existed. Like I had never been here at all. But the worst part? The part that still makes my stomach turn every time I think about it. When I looked in the mirror that morning, it wasn't my reflection anymore. It looked like me. It moved like me. But it wasn't me. Because the thing staring back at me, it was smiling. And I wasn't. They rewrote me. I don't know what I am anymore. I don't know if I'm still human. I don't know if I ever was. All I know is this. You were never meant to ask. And if you do, they'll come for you too. Just like they came for me.